I know everybody here, so the introduction that John was going to go on and on about is not needed. And when I was here for about 15 of my 25 years, there was a railing right here, all the way across this. And it kept people, like when they charged the stage, you could get out before they got here. But that's no longer here, I see. I do have a newspaper article to read you. I thought some people might want a story is what he really meant, guest speaker, just a story.
A story.
And they don't come too easy without a situation. So I did write something down actually, because I'm guessing it's closest I'm ever going to get to a real TED Talk. I wrote it all down. And first I'm going to start out the brief discussion with telling you all I know about post-structuralism and critical theory. Alright. So this is what I wrote down. I hadn't reviewed it because I was cooking fish. If artists are going to experience the world, synthesize said data, and make intelligent, useful, and interesting contributions back to society, it stands to reason that they need to train in seeing more and experiencing more. This is cliche stuff y'all hear all the time, but I can't think of anything more important tonight versus what we're going to see. Seeing deeper and seeing in new ways. Get out of your comfort zone, out of your box. This is a great tool, by the way, but you'll never get you what you're trying to get at. And hang around different people groups. Hang around old people. So tonight there's some old people in this mix. I don't think people hang around old people enough to learn a whole lot from real old people. I mean real old people, not old people. You can hang around nature. Is that a culture? Silence. Anybody been silent for a day recently? It's very cool. All day long. Don't talk about that. Get into another culture and suspend judgment. And stay a while and see deep. So I was going to talk about a couple of characters, since I think this movie that we're going to see tonight is about characters. And John was smart to hook me up with this movie because we had a discussion. I've never seen this movie. And in 1989, people started telling me that I needed to see this movie because it was sort of my kind of movie. And they sort of said, you already know these people. And so some people thought I was going to talk about the movie tonight, but I hadn't seen the movie. But I have lived the movie, I think. And we'll see here in a minute what that's about. I think somebody's going to get lost in the movie. I can tell you a little bit about Vernon, Florida, right before we start. They have one little cafe, and last time I was through there, they had on the sign, they had a Vernon burger for sale there, highly suggesting. Alright, different cultures and stuff. When I was 13 years old, we decided at 11 and stuff, kind of lived in a loose neighborhood, a lot of woods and stuff around the lake, and but we were about 3 years apart from each other, and we decided to build a tree fort. And it turned into a 3-story tree fort, a very cool tree fort. And the old guy that was the gatekeeper to that territory, Mr. Webster, Willis Webster, we got to know him real good, and we hung around his house and we ate pie with Mrs. Willis Webster. She's about this big, she's just so funny. And we'd go fishing with him. He'd teach us a lot of different stuff. Back to knowing old people. And I should say before I start this little story that he's included in the story. He's a Sequoia resident that goes to town hall and fights for us. This story, I should say also, at 15 years old, I guess the day I walked in from school and all of our 11 mothers handed us the copy of the paper simultaneously. We didn't have time to prepare or plan for this activity. At school, if we got in trouble, we had it kind of worked out where the office help would tell who is coming to the office and what purpose, and then we could meet by the water fountain and discuss our story. But we didn't have time for a story. We got handed this when we walked in the door. And it also shows you, even back at that young age of 15, hanging out with 75 years old, that a entity could make up lies about you Fixing to leak some light. Y'all tell what they are, I'm just saying. We never stole nothing. They're all our own tools we brought from home. We built for it, clear and honest, everything, never stole nothing, never did. All these people I'm with today, I'm hanging out with, Monterey Revere, etc. And none of us still ever stole anything. What else? Oh yeah, the cover up. That's going to be the problem in life, people. But the city tried to cover it up. The guy that tried to burn it down, Mr. Webster, saw him clear and fine. I'm trying to get to this in a minute. Story. So interesting thing about this story, I think that you can think, there's a lot of things going on in this story at one time, including the writer. Now this is 1976, 37 years ago, before everybody in this room, except me, and this guy, was alive. So I'm going to read it to you. Y'all ready?
Yeah.
I'm going to do it with feeling. You never got that working, did you? I could show you a picture of the tree fort. We can do that afterwards if you like. With 2 fire engines, sirens blaring. I should tell you that the title of this story in the newspaper from 1976 is Fire, Axes, Befall, Treehouse of Pleasure. With 2 fire engines, sirens blaring, and the fire chief himself rolling down Gallatin Road early last Wednesday afternoon. Y'all can hear me back there in the back, can't you?
I'm old, but not that old.
You'd have thought an entire apartment complex was burning down. Well, the object of the fireman's attention wasn't exactly the Hendersonville Hilton. And it wasn't really burning down. The guy's writing this has got a voice. You got to listen to it. Think about the words he chooses. What the fire crews found when they reached the isolated thicket in Drakes Creek Park, from which smoke was rising from a crude but elaborate treehouse, apparently a hideaway for some youthful Robinson Crusoes. Here's where the lies start. Found near the plywood and 2x4 shack was an assortment of items missing by the city parks department. 2 hand saws, a wood chisel, school chairs, park lamp, and a metal scoreboard the home builders had used for their roof. We found that in the trash pile, and it was the greatest roof. This is a 3-story tree fort. Had like a sway in the back of it, a little angle where water would run off. Never stole anything. Also found was a shotgun type marijuana pipe, a pair of hemostats used. I should have told you in this thing there's a lot of quotes that are kind of important. I hate that, but I'm going to start doing it because it gets you to the voice of the writer. A pair of hemostats used as a roach clip and several empty baggies in which marijuana is usually sold. There were enough sandwich baggies in there to feed the whole high school, said one employee. And I know they weren't eating sandwiches. The floor of the elevated 3-story hut was barely on fire. Listen to the word, barely. And was put out by firemen who had to wade across a small stream to get to the thicket. A nearby resident, Willis Webster, on Sequoia Circle reported the fire, and 2 fire engines responded but could not reach the tree house due to the creek. That's why we built it there. A park employee had also noticed the smoke, lie, and went over to the tree house to investigate. He repeatedly asked the fireman to put out the fire and leave those nice kids alone. They don't bother no one, he said. A park employee said he had first seen the shack last July while mowing grass in the south section of the park close to the lake. He said he notified police, who went through it with a fine-tooth comb. We were there every day, didn't we? Detective Josh Graves said the police checked the treehouse out, confiscated some drug paraphernalia, and stood on it for a while. But nothing happened. We were there every day before we played basketball. This is what we did. And on Saturdays, and parents were down there, you know, lies. He said, he then told the city to tear it down and said didn't know who was using the shack. Apparently, the part-time occupants were living in high style in their lofty abode, which had carpeted floors, screened windows, a throne-like chair. It's in the paper, my chair. I built it in my own hand. And a lookout post further up the tree. A small bridge had been built over a drainage ditch with a wooden ladder providing access to the treehouse. That was a moat around the whole fort. We hand dug it, took weeks with shovels from our own house, not anything stolen from the city. A moat where people couldn't get across it. We raised snapping turtles in there, and it wasn't a drainage ditch. One employee said just as soon let the shack burn down. The city was going to tear it down anyhow. Instead they took an axe and chainsaw to the structure because nearby brush might have caught on fire. On Wednesday, park employees knocked the stilts out from underneath the treehouse and ripped out a section of the floor. The next day they planned to have a backhoe pull it down from the tree. Well, at this point I should interject, they got every piece of equipment stuck in Hendersonville High School, stuck in the swamp for a week. And it cost the city thousands of dollars. And when they got done and hauled all that stuff out, we went down there and tore it down in one weekend by using leverage. Because the architect of the tree fort was a genius. And I should about talk about culture here in a minute. I mean, we had fort court. We would hold fort court. We would, if something went wrong, mainly amongst us, and we'd have to delve out punishment, and people would just take it because it was right. You know, we have on our own society rules, and sometimes we'd have to go outside of the fort to straighten out things in town. But we would do it creatively. It's usually objects and handmade stuff involved, not like meanness, violence. No. We were like we were the fort. I should have told you that. This is about the fort. It's what's called the fort gang. It was 11 people before there were gangs. And we could hold fort court, and we were, I think, good for society. The last paragraph or two here is the interesting thing about just the whole nature of this story. Even with the treehouse, and it gave us a little credit. If you can tell how fearful of they are. In this, the reporter sucked this out of the situation. He had to put it in there. Even with the treehouse pulled down and carried away, park employees said they expect the youthful nature lovers to have another sanctuary rebuilt soon. City park employees also had a change of pace when they chased a loose bull for 4 hours. They said the bull had gotten loose Wednesday in North Jake Rakes Creek area and had eluded its pursuers overnight and was eventually caught in the Point of View subdivision 8,000 feet away from the park. I'd like to thank y'all for listening to that recitation. And 37 years old, and it's a true story because it's in the newspaper. White light's messing up my mind. White light's gonna make me go blind. White heat took me down to my toe. Lord have mercy. Goodness knows.